A story in focus. Claudine and her husband Gus moved to Miami, Florida, after they both retired from the Ohio State Police Department. The winter season in Ohio was harsh. They desired to live in a warmer climate. They liked the weather and the people they met, but there was one aspect of living in Miami they disliked. They could not find a church similar to home. One day, Brian, their next-door neighbor, invited Gus and Claudine to join him and his wife at church on Sunday. Gus hesitated in responding because Brian attended a non-denominational church. Gus had Pray and give thanks. King Solomon waited until the end of the harvest season during the Festival of Booths to dedicate the temple. Before the dedication of the temple, the Ark of the Covenant was transferred from the tabernacle or tent to the temple. The temple represented a permanent place for the people to worship God. King Solomon offered 3 prayers during the dedication ceremony, the first in verses 14 through 21, second in verses 22 through 53, and the third in verses 54 through 61. The first prayer concentrates on God's promise to Solomon's father David to always have an heir from their family sitting on the throne throughout eternity. The second prayer is the fundamental core of the dedication ceremony. King Solomon showed reverence to God. He entered into the inner sanctuary and knelt in front of the altar with hands stretched toward heaven as he prayed. King Solomon expressed gratitude to God for being faithful to the covenant made with his father. God is always faithful when we may not be. And as time passed, the people of Israel were not always faithful in keeping God's commands. But in spite of their or our sinful ways, God would always have a successor to sit on the throne of Israel, which King Solomon petitioned God to fulfill. God's promise was fulfilled through the birth of the Messiah, who was part of the Davidic line. Question: why is expressing gratitude to God important? Pray and believe. God's presence was manifested in the temple through the visibility of a cloud. King Solomon acknowledged in his prayer that in spite of the beautiful temple he had built for God, not even heaven was vast enough to contain his presence. God is omnipresent, so he cannot be confined to one specific location. No one can rightfully say God is only present at their place of worship. Our God can be wherever and with whomever he desires. Today, God does not need a temple as a visible symbol of his invisible presence. God lives in our hearts. King Solomon asked God to hear his prayers and pleas to be forgiven, as well as those of the people of Israel. This included when they were in the temple and in other locations. It is traditional for the Israelites to pray facing the temple in Jerusalem if they are not actually able to pray in the temple. As Christians, we can pray and seek forgiveness no matter our physical position. God only requires we have a humble, repentant heart. He hears us and will respond. King Solomon closed the prayer by reminding God about the covenant made at Mount Sinai with Moses and the Israelites after the exodus from Egypt. The Mosaic covenant set the commands the Israelites had to obey as God's chosen people. Since they were still God's chosen people, King Solomon petitioned God to remember and respond to his people's prayers. Question: why is prayer vital in our relationship with God? Sunday School Nation with Ken Jones. Please subscribe below.